Good morning and welcome to AM News Network presents The Morning Report with Rachel Baird and Ed Peruta. I'm Rachel Baird. Seated next to me is Ed Peruta, as he is every Monday through Thursday from 7 to 7:30 a.m.
No.
For The Morning Report.
No. Monday through Wednesday, because normally Chris Janko is here, and our condolences to Chris Janko and his family. He lost his brother, and he's not here this morning, and I am sitting here filling in for him, and you know, a nicer guy.
We're just very sorry.
Yeah.
So, and join us on Saturdays as well for our summary judgment show from 4 to 6 p.m. with retired Lieutenant Colonel and attorney Matt Tyszkka. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning, Rachel.
I made some notes from last night's Hartford
Civilian
Police
Review
Review Board meeting. I don't have them in front of me. They're in the front office, but I think I can remember.
Well, let me make an announcement first. For those of you who are disappointed in the Supreme Court not taking my case, Chuck Michelle from Michelle and Associates in Long Beach, California, offered to call in to summary judgment and have a discussion about what's going on. So for you people in California, it may happen this Saturday, but then again it could happen the following Saturday.
So we'll keep you up
Chuck
to date.
Chuck has agreed to call in, and I can tell everybody that a Matt Valentine from Politico magazine has talked to Chuck Michelle, has talked to Rachel, and has talked to me. And yesterday when I was talking to him, he says, "Is this on or off the record?" I said, "Case is over." I said, "I'm always on the record." So there you go. So we went to the Hartford Civilian Police Review Board last night.
Which I think was their first meeting since February, right?
It is their first meeting as the newly formed board. They're in a new room where the acoustics are atrocious. They had a fan going that you couldn't hear anything. They do not have an audio system where they speak into microphones and there's a couple of speakers where the people can hear what they're talking about. And I really believe that they're bordering on a violation of FOI, because all I have to do is ask for an accommodation for my inability to hear.
Well, in their defense, where the board used to meet was in the conference room of the Office of Corporation Counsel, and the room was very small, not much bigger than the area we're sitting in.
You might as well have had it in the basement of Town Hall.
Yeah, and so there was no room
in a broom closet
for anybody to sit who wanted to come watch.
Right.
And somebody did mention we should have this in a bigger room. So they went to a bigger room. But that bigger room doesn't work.
It does not.
So they're going to have to keep trying.
It could.
It could. There were 6 members last night there, right? I counted 6.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's correct.
Yeah, and I think at the last meeting we went to in February, there were 5 members, and Walter Butler reappeared last night. The former chairman of the board reappeared, and apparently he is on the board. And Ed, you think you know how he got back on?
I know exactly how he got on the board.
How did he get back on?
Because one of the seats on the board is reserved for a certain group in Town Hall, like Human Relations or something. And there's only 2 members of that group. So the 2 members decided to appoint Butler to the board. So Butler came back.
So so it sounds like he's on another commission, and that commission has the power to appoint. So he appointed himself.
Right. They appointed. Yeah, he appointed He voted to appoint himself.
Because you know Mayor Bronin didn't envision him back on there. He was not. Only one former board member was reappointed by Mayor Bronin, and that's Ramon Espinoza. Everybody else, out.
Right.
But Walter Butler has reappeared. You know, I noticed a couple different things last night other than the room and the acoustics, which was obvious. But from a more substantive level, they did not discuss cases the way the old board used to. They used to discuss the facts of a case. And you could sit there as a member of the public and listen to the facts of the case and then listen to their votes. They would go around the table. Now they just have the packet in front of them. They sit there and kind of read it. There was one where they kind of discussed it, the scissors case, and we'll get to that. But then they sit there and read it. They pass around a piece of paper. They check off blocks, you know, whether they're sustaining the complaint or exonerating the officer or whatever. And then they give the results at the end, just the overall results, not who voted how. And then it's over. So the public has no idea what's going on now. And you videotaped it. Now, when you put it up, people are going to see that you can't hear anything that's going on.
Well,
I assume
you're going to put that up? I did. The camera does have a shotgun mic, which zooms in. Mm-hmm. But do I think that the camera was able to pick it up? No.
And you were right there. You moved up.
I did. I asked for permission because there was a comment from the audience about the audio quality or the acoustics, and that we couldn't hear because of the fan. And I said, you know, do you mind, there's only 3 people in attendance, if we move our chairs up so that we can hear you talking? And they didn't, so I moved my chair up and took the camera with me.
You know what's funny? When we first started going to the board meetings back in September 2016, there was a gentleman, also a member of the public, who would be at the meetings, and the way the conversation went, it seemed like he had been going to those meetings for a long time and been actively involved with the board, and now we don't see him anymore at all.
Well, now understand.
What happened to him?
Now understand something. It's on a different night of the week. It's in a different time of the month, so he may have had the old Tuesday off to go. For all we know, he works nights, and he works on Wednesday nights. Yeah. And he couldn't make it.
The schedule's changed.
Right.
So what else was the take? This was my takeaway from it. In the limited conversation that was, you know, said out loud about the cases, there were a lot of questions about, well, the complainant, the officers, this, that. It's almost like the board is operating in a vacuum. And I said to the third person who was seated next to me, well, she spoke at the meeting, Alicia Peterson. I said to her, why aren't the complainants told when their case is going to be discussed?
I was just going to say,
so they can come
to start,
have the opportunity.
Right.
The board does not tell people when their cases are going to be discussed. And I said to Alicia, I said, ask them during public comment, because I know what Kim Taylor's going to say. She's going to say that I'm too busy to call
Keep talking,
people.
I'll be right back.
I'm too busy to call people, and it's posted on the agenda in Town Hall, in City Hall, and people can come look at the agenda, but people make these complaints, and the complaints aren't heard for a while. Are they supposed to be checking the agenda every month for the Hartford Civilian Review Board to see when their case is going to be heard, and then come in for that meeting when we know that at least during the past year, meetings were always canceled? And so not only are they supposed to check the agenda, but they're supposed to check to see if the meeting's canceled, or if they don't see if it's canceled, they're supposed to come to the meeting and perhaps take off work and take time. And my understanding of the FOI law in Connecticut was, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Ed, but these things are supposed to be put online. Aren't agendas supposed to be put online now if a municipality maintains? They changed it.
They changed the law.
Because it was too expensive.
No, because I think that there were communities that didn't have the resources to do it.
Well, that's what I mean.
Right.
It's too expensive. So if you go to the Hartford Civilian Review Board website, the last link for any agenda or minutes as from 2012 and click on that link and it goes to a dead page. So all the links on the Civilian Review Board website go to a dead page. So are they serious that somebody who makes a complaint, goes through the trouble to make a complaint, and there were only like 10 cases on last night, you don't have time to notify complainants when their case is going to be discussed? If for anything, you may call up the complainant and they may say, you know what, I was kind of hot when that happened and I've gotten over it, and you can just take that off the docket. It might even save you time if you do that. That's what the Board of Firearms review, that's what the Board of Firearms Permanent Examiners does. So they're sitting there discussing a case without any investigators present, without any complainants present, just in a complete vacuum. And what's interesting is the board no longer has anybody, to my knowledge, with any law enforcement background. None whatsoever. So it's kind of comical to sit there and listen to these people discuss cases to a certain extent and ask questions and have no real input into the law enforcement side of it. Now, there are two IA Hartford Police Department officers that sit there, right?
Correct.
But I think when questions are asked of them about the investigation, aren't you kind of putting them on the spot? I mean, really.
What are they going to do? Are they going to say what's not in the IA report?
Yeah, they're going to say, oh, yeah, shitty investigation that Hartford officer did. My God, he could have done this, he could have done that. I mean, I don't even expect those guys to do that. I think you're putting them in a pretty difficult position. It's supposed to be an independent review board. I got a real problem with Kim Taylor, who is an administrative assistant who works in the Office of Corporation Counsel, basically telling the board members what to do. She's almost running the show. Why is the independent Civilian Review Board relying on Corporation Counsel for leadership and guidance in how to conduct the board? It is truly the, what do they call it? The hen house being led by the fox?
The fox in the hen house.
The fox in the hen house. That capsulizes last night. The fox is still in the hen house, and that board is so far from being independent.
Well, can I have a minute?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not going to be as nice as you because of a thing that I heard last night. A person files a complaint. The complaint is given a case number. And the case number starts out with the 2-digit year. If it's 2010, it starts with 10-. 2012, 12-. 2014, 14-. Last night they were dealing with cases that started with 15 and started with 16. Now, Alicia Peterson asked Kim Taylor if, in fact, the board notified the complainant that their case was going to be discussed and ruled on June 28, 2017 at 6 o'clock at City Hall. She said, I post the list and the agenda in the clerk's office. Now, to me, that is a let's avoid the question answer.
And they only have to post it within 24 hours of the event.
That's correct. Now, so
not much time to plan ahead there.
Kim Taylor is basically saying, if you're a complainant and you have filed a complaint with the Civilian Review Board in 2015, make a phone call every month to the city clerk's office to say, am I on the agenda this month? Am I on the agenda this month? Am I on the agenda
No,
this
I
month?
don't even think it's that. Am I on? You have to call within 20. It's not like you can call 48 hours in advance, because believe me, I've been to the clerk's office when that agenda just arrives.
Correct. Now, Kim Taylor gives the cases out to the members 30 days in advance of the meeting where they're going to be discussed. And I had to actually ask her. I said, Kim, I don't know if I heard this right. So a person files a complaint. The board sends it out to an investigator. It comes back and it's put into a pile. And when you get to it, and you put it on the agenda, and you never send a letter to the complainant to tell him his case is going to be heard? And she said, that's what I said. Now, here's where I'm not going to be as nice as you. Kim Taylor, in my opinion, is lazy. She is lazy. She has made statements about not bringing the bylaws and the rules to the meeting because it's too much to bring them. She has said that at a previous meeting.
Well, and at that time, the meeting was taking place in the conference room attached to her office, which is the Office of Corporation Counsel.
But it was too much.
Now I guess you'd have to go down one floor or up one floor.
Or maybe, just maybe, the book is too heavy. Look.
This is, last night, and I think all but the first case, the officers were exonerated, right? So there were complainants last night. Natasha Chambers, Lisa Williams, Andrew Barnes, Christopher Brown, Darren McGregor, Claudia Jackson, Antoine Blunt, Demita Smith, Mildred Smith, and Miriam Cruz. I wonder if the conversation of the review board would have been different if those individuals would have been present at the meeting. And in the majority of those cases, at least one board member, and I don't know her last name, we got to learn the new board members, but her first name is Hyacinth. In every case, except a couple, no. Her comment was, the police were only doing their job. They went into a tough situation. The police were only doing their job. What do you expect? How do you expect them to act? I want her to say that in front of the complainant. And I want the complainant to be able to come back and say, I was there, you weren't. Let me tell you.
Did you notice a common complaint by complainants last night?
Discourteous attitude.
The use of profanity.
Yeah.
Not in one case, but in several cases, one of the complaints made is conduct unbecoming. The officer used profanity.
And you know, after the meeting, I wandered around outside and I saw a posting on Mayor Bronin's office, workplace something. And I went over, and it specifically, on Mayor Bronin's door, it specifically is posted, we won't tolerate any profane language, threats, any of that kind of stuff. So it's kind of weird that on Mayor Bronin's door, that notice is posted, but right in the hearing room next to him, where civilians are making complaints about that same conduct, everybody's saying, well, the police tried their best, it was a chaotic, you know what, you know, take the notice down, Mayor Bronin. Take it down. But what I saw at that meeting last night was the board member on the right, Hyacinth, consistently coming out in defense of the police, and her voice, when I heard it, seemed familiar. And I asked the person next to me, I said, does she go to CompStat meetings? Because I feel like we went to a CompStat meeting one time where she was there praising Rovella. You know, singing the praises of the police department, Rovella, saying they were doing a great job. Now she's on the board basically doing the same thing. So it appears to me she is a cheerleader.
Okay.
For Mayor Broden and Chief Rovella, good for her. But this is what I saw. I saw the other board members kind of following her and not really speaking up against her, like she's got some sort of juice going and nobody really wants to be confrontational with her. She appeared to me to be the real leader last night, even though she was seated on the far right.
All right, here we go. The reason that I paid attention to the profanity issue is, as a young probationary police officer, there was a burglary of the Pine Acres Swim Club building at about 2 o'clock in the morning. And 4 or 5 officers, the entire shift, showed up. And when I got there, Sergeant Francis Raganey said, Ed, go in and make sure it's clear. I went in, looked around, and lo and behold, I found somebody. And I took the person out of the attic, dragged him down out of the hole in the wall into the men's room, put my flashlight on him, and I said, what the fuck are you doing here? It was the chief of police's son, Jeff Sullivan. Now, I was reprimanded for my profanity in the men's room while I was in the process of apprehending the chief's son. But you can imagine that in a small town, I went to school with his older sister. He was a couple of years younger than me. And the shock of saying, oh my God, I've got to arrest the chief's son. And I did say that. But it's in my personnel file. Use of profanity, conduct unbecoming, no problem. I took the hit and I understood it. But last night I was sitting there, and every time the chairman read the case, all I had to do was swing the camera over to Hyacinth, because she was going to be, when they said any comments, she was going to be the first person to say they didn't do anything wrong. They were facing this, they were facing that. Please. But we have to do this right now before we do anything else. This is a new board. They do not yet have what would be commonly called their sea legs. They are still in the process of feeling their way around. How do we do this? How do we do that? What can we do better?
But you can see some problems already in a couple spots that
big ones
the board's going to have to get beyond. I got to tell you, Walter Butler is a problem. I'm going to say it. He's a problem. He makes uncomfortable statements that in the year 2017 at a board meeting
should not be made.
And you can tell if you watch the video that other people are very uncomfortable with some of his statements. Okay, and that doesn't make him a good or bad person. It's 2017, and you do have to be somewhat careful when you're on a board.
Okay.
What you say about women, what you say about black people, you have to be careful.
I'll tell you. You know, I'm sure you've got your list. Mm-hmm. Did you write something down?
I wonder where the whole issue of now the 19 officers who did not give statements have been identified. Has that issue gone away?
But the board hadn't. I don't know if the board's been officially told. They asked.
See, with the old board, and in my opinion, this is what ended the old board, was when they voted to request the names of the 19 officers who refused to give a statement about the June 4th, 2016 Flatbush incident. That killed the old board. And what happened to the issue, and you addressed this last night, of Linda Baird asking Jonathan Beeman from the Office of Corporation Counsel to revisit the legal issue of whether just because somebody sues in federal court for civil rights violation, or any violation, I guess, that their complaint before the Civilian Review Board should be set aside. I contend that the Hartford Civilian Review Board, by doing that, is engaging in retaliation against individuals who file civil rights claims and seek redress in the courts, and the Hartford Board is setting itself up for a lawsuit if it continues to do that. But you know what? Keep listening to the Office of Corporation Counsel, whose only interest is in protecting Hartford from being sued, not in the board's interest. Keep listening to them, and the Civilian Review Board is going to get sued.
Let me set this up, because what you just said a different way, I think, is going to have a better impact. Because last night I had to be very careful about the way I described exactly what happened. What happened at the same meeting that they wanted the 19 names, this woman Baird was there. And it was getting near the end of the meeting. And she actually had to remind the corporation, the assistant corporation counsel, oh yeah, and you were going to bring up the issue of the legal opinion.
Like they had spoken about it and planned
Right,
in
it was
advance.
planned what was going to happen that night.
Yeah, don't forget to say.
And then Jonathan Beeman came out and said, yes, if you would like, I am prepared to revisit the issue and render a new opinion. And the board said, yes, please, give us a new opinion. Well, he's had all of that time.
And I feel like that was January that happened.
I believe it was January.
Yeah.
And when I brought in all of the depositions to Kim Taylor, I had an opportunity to ask Jonathan Beeman, oh, by the way, counselor, you were going to be working on a legal opinion that affects my complaint. Have you completed it yet? Because I would say give it to me under FOI. No, I haven't. I said, have you started it yet? And at the time he said, no, I haven't. And I believe that Jonathan Beeman, sitting there last night, had still not started. And now, when Ramon Espinoza asked, it's kind of like the letter. They want a letter. No, you need a legal opinion. Now, Espinoza did say...
Again, why is the board going to the Office of Corporation Counsel, who has a different interest in looking at police misconduct? Why are they going to the Office of Corporation Counsel for an opinion about whether they should continue to hear cases where the individuals have sued the city, and the Office of Corporation Counsel represents the city in those lawsuits, so of course they don't want the board to look at the case. Can anybody else see the conflict, or is it just me? Am I the only one that sees this huge conflict? Oh, you're going to investigate me? You know what? There's a separate board over there that also investigates these issues. Don't investigate me. Well, I don't want you to investigate me. Well, of course I'm going to say that.
And then we got into their destruction of records.
Yeah.
And I had talked to Leanne Power, the Public Records Administrator for the state, and I said, you better contact her because I've already talked to her and I know what her answer is. But listen, we're out of time.
We are, and you're going to put the video up, right?
I am going to put the video up. Regardless of how shitty the audio is, I'm going to put it up raw. If it's bad, I'm not going to waste a lot of time on it. But Master Control is here.
See you Saturday at 4 p.m.
4 p.m.